Have you ever kept someone in your life who was obviously bad for you, who was toxic and mean, and who dragged you down just because you were scared of being alone without them? Or have you ever denied yourself the pleasure of doing something just because you had no one else to do it with? Because I have, and the most important lesson that I learned from it was that time spent alone, even though it's not the same, can be no less valuable and just as enjoyable as time spent with other people.
Good morning, everyone. So to catch you up to speed, Mike is away at a business trip for a couple of days, so I'm here all alone. Plus, we should all be able to have a great relationship, not only with other people, but also within ourselves as well. Today's schedule is going to be looking like I have a follow-up appointment for my wisdom teeth. I'm not gonna lie, guys, it still hurts a lot and I don't think it's normal. So we'll see what the dentist says today. And then afterwards, I have work from home, and then I'm gonna finish editing this weekend's video. I'm currently reading the Inheritance Games. I'm like, I'd say like 2/3 of the way through, or maybe halfway through. It's pretty interesting so far. Okay, time to get ready.
I used to think that spending time with people I didn't necessarily enjoy being around was better than being alone. When we're children, alone time was often a punishment. In all movies and TV shows that we watch, the happy and popular people are always surrounded by others, while the sad and depressed ones always eat alone. But that can't be the whole story.
Cheeks looking extra chubby and swollen today.
I think the biggest reason we might not enjoy spending time alone is that we never really try to, and that's maybe because we're never taught why we should. After all, if we have people in our lives, why should we want to spend our time without them? Isn't it just a problem we would only have if we can't find enough people to surround ourselves with? It turns out that all of this is wrong.
The time is around 8 a.m., so let's head to my appointment.
I realize that no matter how many friends we make or people we have in our lives, it will always be important to carve out time in our days that are just for ourselves and no one else. The reason is that the time that we spend alone is our opportunity to build the foundation we need to take on the world.
I know that this is not a look right now, but please forgive me.
The world is a really unpredictable place. Almost all of it, except what's inside yourself, is beyond your control.
Alright, update if anybody cares. On this side, it's a bit more inflamed, a bit more swollen, and it might be because the blood clot fell off too early. So it's what's known as a dry socket. So he put something in there to help with the pain, but I should be in pain for like another week. It's okay. It's okay. I'm strong.
Friends can betray you, you can lose your job, or fail an exam you really need to pass. No matter how hard you try to avoid them, sometimes bad things are going to happen in your life. And if you want to protect yourself from it all, you have to first be able to find happiness and contentment all by yourself without relying on anyone else or anything else to make that happen.
So I'm gonna make a matcha. I'm starving and I haven't eaten yet today because the thing that they put in my mouth, it tasted so terrible. But I'm going to make a protein smoothie now for a like breakfast, lunch, brunch type of thing. I've never done this before, so I'm just going to add some vanilla protein powder to my usual smoothie. Let's see how it tastes.
Sometimes introspection and self-care can only really happen when you're alone, especially when it comes to assessing your emotional needs. You have to be able to stop and ask yourself these questions. How am I doing? Am I happy right now? And if not, why? What could I be doing differently to achieve my goals? And just as importantly, what do I even want my goals to be? Although friends can help us answer some of these questions, ultimately we have to be the one to figure them out for ourselves. No one can decide for us what we value most in life or whether or not we're trying as hard as we can to achieve it. And if we never take the time to slow down and do a bit of reflection, we won't be able to direct our lives right away because we won't even know where we want to go.
Okay, let's try this out. It's edible. Yeah, it's fine.
At some point, I became convinced that it was important for me to learn to spend time by myself, but there was still a problem. I didn't know how.
My work day is over. I ordered myself some congee and some changfen. These are traditional Asian foods. Usually people eat them for breakfast, but I am feeling the pain in my wisdom teeth again, so I'm just trying to avoid anything that's like too hard. I'm Chinese, by the way, if you guys don't know.
I mean, we could obviously spend our days in bed by ourselves, scrolling on our phones until the sun sets, but that's not the point. What I mean is, I didn't know how to enjoy it. I didn't know how to get any value out of it like I wanted to, which meant that a lot of the time that I spent by myself still felt wasteful to me. But over time, I was able to change that. The first thing I did to make that happen was to ask myself, if I had all the time in the world and no pressure on my shoulders, what would I want to do? What do I think would bring me happiness and fulfillment if I could really immerse myself in it and give it my all? And that's part of how I ended up doing YouTube. And that's what I think we should all do together. Find things that we enjoy doing just for ourselves, not because we have to do them or because anyone else tells us that we should, but because they bring us joy and meaning all on their own. That's how we can start to build the foundation that we need to have real direction and purpose in our lives. By finding something to do with our time that we actually think is meaningful, whether it's working towards a fitness goal, starting a project in your community, or grinding for your career. The important thing is to find what works for you. Another thing I got much better at over the years was being alone with my own thoughts. I used to be really anxious all the time, and when I would think anxious thoughts, I would try anything to make them stop. But then I learned that sometimes the best thing to do is to just let them be. Often our thoughts and emotions are telling us about ourselves. They're pointing towards something that deep down we're not happy with, or showing us that we're getting burnt out. And since we spend so much of our time being constantly distracted, be it by our phones or by school or by other people, it can be really beneficial sometimes to just sit still and let our thoughts and emotions do their thing without trying to interfere with them. By listening to them rather than pushing them away, we can make our brains work for us rather than against us. And that really is a kind of self-care, one of the most valuable things that we can do for our own happiness and well-being. The biggest lesson that I learned the past couple of years is that ultimately loneliness isn't about being alone. Loneliness is feeling like we're deprived of deep and meaningful relationships that make all of our lives worth living. And no matter how many people we surround ourselves with and how much time you spend hanging out with them, if we don't have people in our lives who generally care about us and who provide us with the support that we need, who treat us with respect and consideration, and vice versa, us to them, we probably are going to feel lonely. Loneliness is fundamentally about lack of connection, and remember, connection goes both ways. If you don't have anyone in your life who can do that for you, then you probably don't have anyone that you can do that for either, which means that if you feel lonely, filling your life with people you actually can't relate to or don't really like being around isn't going to make you feel any better. Hello guys, so it's much later. I'm done work and also just finished editing my video that's going to be released tomorrow. You know, you would think that I could get videos done in advance and not the day before, but somehow I always end up making like last minute changes and like trying to do all these different things. So yes, it's almost like 7 p.m. now, but I'm gonna make myself a protein shake because I think I'm gonna go out to eat later tonight, but I'm hungry right now. If there's one thing that I can promise you, it's that you're always going to feel better alone, fully focused on yourself and your goals, than you'll ever feel throwing away your time with people who don't show you respect, who don't mean anything to you, and who don't really like spending time around you anyways. Because at the end of the day, no matter who is in your life, you have to be the one to take responsibility for your own success. Whatever our circumstances, no matter how difficult a road lies ahead of us, there's no one who's capable of helping us if we don't first try to help ourselves. Just like no one can do it alone, no one can do it all for you either. So this month, let's all use our alone time to look after ourselves, set all of our goals, and start building the happy, successful life we've always dreamed of.